How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another YouTube video. This one is a month one review of the Rolex Daytona. If my camera would focus on my face, there you go. I've been wearing this watch for about a month now. I put out a video about a month ago today. My editor put it together for me of me going and picking up this watch with my girlfriend, and I figured it was time for an update. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. What it's been like to wear the Rolex Daytona for about a month now. Also, excuse the fan. The AC fan should turn off in a moment. Just got a new audio setup, seeing if it works. Totally not a business related video. You know, obviously those of you who are familiar with this channel, I talk about two things. One, I talk about, my marketing business that I run, and then I also help people start their own. And these watch videos, they're kind of off the cuff. They're kind of like not quite on par with the rest of the content. But I figure, the last video has about 6,000, maybe 7,000 views at this point. Tons of comments. My dealer who I plugged in that video has gotten tons of calls from the people who watched that video wanting their own Daytonas or their own Rolexes or different watches. So I figured it'd just be cool to have an update video because, it's been about a month now. I've owned it for about a month. And I just wanted to share, what the experience has been like since I pulled the trigger on it. So I figure the best format for this video would be pros and cons. So let's start with the cons, and there's really only one big con, and that's that the yellow gold scratches pretty easily. But that's really not that big a deal. At the end of the day, you bought a watch to wear it. Unless you're a collector or you're just building an investment portfolio of watches, which is a common thing to do. I buy my watches to wear them, and obviously maybe to pour in cash and use as an investment as well. I've probably spent I'd say about $22,000 in total in watches, and my collection is valued right now at about $27,000. So I've profited a little bit off of my watch venture, but it's worth noting that this watch alone holds most of that profit. So I bought this watch for $17.5 thousand, and I've already profited, if I were to sell it with the watch box and papers, since I bought it straight from an approved dealer. I could sell it for a solid, $18, $19, potentially $20,000 if I keep good care of it. So I want to talk about my perspective on buying a watch less than I want to talk about the actual watch itself. Of course, the watch is beautiful. It's yellow gold, it's steel. But those of you who are watching this video who are new to the channel, have never seen what I do before, never seen me before, my goal in this video is to convince you to pick up a high quality watch if you have the means to do so. And really make a case for why it's one of the best things you could do if you are in business, or you are an entrepreneur of any kind, or you're just somebody who's, even worked corporate for a long time and you've climbed that ladder and gotten to a point where you can afford something like this. Maybe you're a doctor or a lawyer, or you are somebody of those sorts of means. Of course, at being, as humble as I can be, I'm only 20 years old, so I don't have that much experience in, the corporate field. But I do know that the biggest advantage for picking up a watch like this is it's two specific things. One, when you run your own business, it's really easy to get attached to that month's numbers, that month's profits, revenue, that day's profits, that day's revenue. And when you have a watch that is valued, at the price tag that this one is or higher, or even in that 10,000-ish range, it's a feeling of abundance. It keeps you from feeling like, if we don't make today's sale, we lose business, or, there's a lot of tempting, scarce feelings that can come with being an entrepreneur or a professional of any kind, or even just someone who performs at a high level in any capacity. And so that's one of the benefits of owning a watch like this. And I've noticed a huge shift in my mentality personally since I purchased this watch. So and I'll just give a direct example. So the two different portions of my business, I've got one where I obviously run a marketing agency. We deliver services to specialized niche consultants. We help them sell more of their services by generating inbound sales calls, getting people calling their phone or scheduling calls on their calendar or their team's calendar. And then I have a section of my business where I educate others on how to start their own marketing business, pick a niche, pick a service, and develop a business that way. And only 2 or 3 weeks after I purchased this watch, something happens in your brain when you have, something of this value just on your wrist casually, where you just begin to think a bit differently. You begin to think on a different level. And I don't know, some of you maybe in the comments, you can share your thoughts on this as well. Those of you who have purchased your first $2,000-$3,000 watch or higher, those of you who are in ownership of a $20,000 or more watch, you can probably see a different perspective in your brain regarding money and regarding whatever business it is that you find yourself in. And within only 2 weeks or so of purchasing this watch, my mindset shifted, I changed perspective on my business, and I launched a new product. And within about 3 or 4 days of launching the product, we've done about $20,000 in sales on the product. And it's a pretty incredible thing. I've never had that happen before. I'm not crediting the watch directly, but I come at this purchase from a purely psychological perspective. And the reason why I invest in watches or even have a nice apartment or these things is to shift my perspective on money, allow myself to think more abundantly, so I can make better long-term and short-term financial decisions. So interestingly enough, from the outside, when you're looking at somebody spending $17,500 on a watch, the first thing that comes to your brain is, holy crap, why on earth would you do that? Which you would be right in thinking so, unless you have maybe a different perspective on how money works. So that's one of the biggest benefits. That's one of the biggest pros, is that having a watch collection valuated at $25,000-ish. It's a very comforting feeling. And it's also just a lot of fun to be able to have that sort of cash on hand. It also gives me a feeling of abundance. If I lose a sale, who cares? I've got the watch right here. I could sell the watch. If I lose a big client or something, who cares? I've got the watch right here. And so it keeps me from feeling scarce and worried about the next sale. So now I want to move from more of a psychological element in the pros and cons list to more of an actual speaking about the watch itself. The make of the watch, the style of the watch, what I've found it to work best in terms of fashion, when I wear it, when I don't wear it, taking care of it, things like that. So let me start with the actual style of the watch. And I gotta say, Rolex nailed the Daytona. It is easily one of their prettiest watches in my opinion. The Datejust is sleek, it's pretty. The Sky Dweller, again, sleek, pretty. It's got a more glazed over feel. Same with a lot of their watches. The next watch in line, in my opinion, would be the Submariners or the GMTs, those more sporty models. But the Cosmograph Daytona nails that mix of, classy, gentlemanly, sort of manliness with a sort of a more eccentric, kind of a, I don't know what's the right word. It's almost like an acquired taste, but it doesn't take long to acquire it. You look at it and you're like, wow, that's a really fancy looking watch. But then you're like, wait, like that, I totally get it. That you got the 3 pegs on the sides, controlling the actual watch itself. And you have the gold dial with the numbers, and most people looking at that have no idea what those things mean. They have very little idea why the watch has all these moving pieces and all these parts to it. So when you're just objectively looking at the style of it, it is easily one of the prettiest watches, in my opinion, that Rolex makes, by far. And a lot of people would bash the gold and steel choice that I made to have the two-tone. But my thing is, I don't want all gold. That's too flashy. I don't want all steel. To be honest, it's not enough flash. I'm the kind of person, I want a watch that stands out a little bit, but not a watch that makes me, worry about, being active with it on. An all yellow gold watch, personally, would just freak me out. Yellow gold, it damages so easily. It's just such an easy metal to bend and dent and scratch. So I just would worry about wearing it. So I like that the steel's on the outside of the band. I feel less worried about bumping it into things. I like that the crystal, the glass, is incredibly robust. It's just strong as can be. All transparency. I have bumped it into a couple doorknobs, and it's nothing's ever happened. I feel like I could take a drill to it and it'd be fine. Not really. I probably wouldn't do that, but you get the gist. So I love the watch. I think it's gorgeous. A month in, I don't regret the purchase at all. No buyer's remorse of any kind. No, wondering what the heck I was thinking at the time. Just still super happy with the watch. Love it. Wear it almost daily. I would say right now I've gone a couple days without wearing it. I do have the box right here. I've got my watch case over here in my seating area, or like my couch spot. But the case itself, I'll just leave it in here because I feel like it kind of deserves its own case for now until I get really used to it and want to throw it in with my other watches. Obviously we've got the stamp here, we've got price tag and receipt back here, all the papers in here. And I don't regret it a bit. It's a month in, just over 30 days in, so I'm a little late to this video, but I honestly think this is one of my best watch purchases. I think it's going to be hard for me to find another watch that I appreciate as much as this one. And it's going to be hard for me to find a watch that meant as much to me on a psychological level as this watch did. And I know most people buy watches not just to own a nice watch, but for what it means. And I happened to buy this watch during a really important time in my business where I'd pulled through a lot of crazy fires that I had to put out, and insane, like feelings of should I quit, should I keep going? And I was able to pull through that, and this watch was kind of a celebration of that time for me, and being able to pull through and still succeed and still push through. My Date Just is another watch that if you guys want more information on, I can make a video about that. But that watch I actually bought out in Amsterdam with one of our top students from our educational programs. And that's a really meaningful thing for me as well, that I could buy a watch in the presence of somebody that we've been able to help. So yeah, and this is just a statement of breaking some revenue marks and being able to put that cash into something meaningful. Doing it with my girlfriend, which is really cool. Yeah, there's not much left to say. I almost feel like I need to let the watch just speak for itself. I could ramble on for a while, but at some point, words just don't do it justice. There's a lot to this watch. It's just an incredible piece. It's handmade, every piece. The fact that Rolex makes all of their watches in-house, they've never once, even during the current economic corona crisis, they've never, once sacrificed quality. They've never outsourced manufacturing. They've never pushed it to China or, out of the country. They've always done it in-house with professionals, highly trained. One thing that I learned recently, for example, about the GMT, I think it's the Pepsi GMT, there's 2 ladies in charge of that one dial, and every single one of those dials is made by 2 women, one of 2 women. And same here with this Daytona. I think there's only 3 or 4 people in charge of each crown at the tip of the Daytona, so that it was made by one of those people. And so just that speaking of that ability to kind of appreciate quality and not sacrificing quality is a really cool thing. So I'm loving it. It's a month in, not much else to say. I think it's one of my best purchases in terms of a watch. I've already profited $2,000 or $3,000 off of the watch, so from an investment standpoint, it's also a great move. And yeah, enjoying it thoroughly, and I will give you guys an update at some point when I decide to either buy another watch, or if I sell this watch, or whatever I tend to end up doing with it. I love the band. I love the way it sits on my wrist. It feels great. Feels super comfortable. It's it's heavy, but you don't feel it there at some point. It's got the right amount of weight to like comfort ratio. It's not like this super heavy, like you feel it on your wrist all day, but it's not so light that it doesn't feel well made. You can tell that it's real metal, and it's been made by hand by people who really care about it. And that's a really cool feeling to have the work of a couple thousand really talented individuals sitting on your wrist in the form of a meaningful purchase for me personally. It was a business celebration. So loving it. Absolutely adore this watch. If you want to watch the first video where I picked up the watch, that link will be in the description. My editor, if you could throw that in there, that'd be great. And I'm just going to wrap up the video, maybe with some B-roll or just showing off the watch a little bit, or maybe you can cut the B-roll into the video, Keely, whatever you want to do, man, up to you. But yeah, that is the Rolex Daytona gold steel with the black dial. Reference number in the description or on the screen somewhere. I forget the reference number off the top of my head, but this is one of my all-time favorite watches. I doubt I'll buy a watch that I like as much as this one at any point, no matter the price tag. This is a beautiful piece. very, very proud of it, very proud to wear it, and excited to buy more. One last plug, if you are in the Midwest, you're in Indiana or in that area, I'm in Indiana personally, you're in Ohio, Illinois, anywhere in the Midwest in the States, feel free to contact my dealer, Brian. The information will be in the description. His Instagram, as well as the address of the jeweler that I use that he works at. So just call the jeweler, ask for Brian, and tell him that Trey sent you, and we'll see if we can't get a good deal for you on your first or your second or your fifth watch. If you're wanting to get a Daytona specifically, they can put you on a waiting list and get you your own Daytona. So there you go. Hopefully you enjoyed this update video. Thank you so much for watching.